Okay, welcome back to part two, where we let things off at as I was running a few test renders. You can see here some of those renders. I experimented with the idea of putting a 3D text into the actual scene using 3D Wizard, I think 3D Lettered Wizard by Riversoft Arts. I think you can find that on DAZ3D.com. But anyway, I did this because I wanted to have a glowing effect that actually hit the character. It came out pretty well, like I expected, but you can definitely see the you see my depth of field here is not quite set right, and I had a couple of layers to this. Sorry about that. But you can see that the glow did actually hit the character in a unique sort of way. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I decided that just like I would normally do a graphic, I just made the render. Now, this is not final by any means, and I want to talk about that for just 1 second before we move on to the next piece of this. But you just have more control in Photoshop. So I keep imagining that I'm going to cancel my Adobe subscription and use free tools for the pieces of Adobe that I use because it's about $60 a month. I've been paying that forever. So no sign of that subscription price going down to earth again. So I'm hoping to eventually work Photoshop out of my workflow, particularly when the only other thing that I use Creative Cloud for is the video editor Premiere. And now there's a superior video editor out there for free called DaVinci Resolve. So I need to, just a small matter of learning that software, and then I can get free of that huge subscription from Adobe, because Adobe is just focused on purchasing new apps. They don't really support their old apps that well. And a big part of this way they sold the subscriptions was that you're always going to have the latest and greatest continually updated version of this product. And fortunately, the upgrades to, there are some, but it's usually like AI, little bells and whistles, not making it function better for the functionality it already has. So it's been frustrating. But I digress. For now, this is what I'm going to go with to just plop it into my tool. You can see here that what we're doing is just having our comic flow going here so I can carry on with this story. Now, I will mention that I'm doing what I always recommend that you don't do, and that is just going with the flow, so to speak, and not having a script ahead of time, just kind of going on inspiration. But since the whole point of this project is to do a render per day for the next year, I felt like that was okay, because I might get bored with this and just do something else or just pick up a whole new story. And this is counterproductive in a way if you're trying to make a 3D novel, but if you're just trying to make art, then hey, you know, go wherever the muse takes you, right? So in this case, I'm just going to throw a real quick blank page into this. And you will not see it, but off screen, I'm going to grab these images. Well, the image that I said I was going to use, I've actually saved that out as I believe a JPEG. You see here. Just going to pop right over to the right folder here. I could navigate here, but it's just things move around so much. I don't always do that. So yeah, I got my little folder where I have my pages, and I'll just grab this, pull it in. And in this case, because I'm not going to, normally not, now this is like the wrong way to do this. Typically I would use a cover page and template from Comic Life Pro 3. But in this case, I'm just using the image. So that's why there's not a box to the shape of the page to add it in. The big benefit of using Comic Life is it has some templates for covers and styles that work really well. But the downside is that you come off looking like a lot of the other comics you'll see out there that were made with this. So that's all we're doing for that. Then we're going to pop back over to our DAZ Studio for just a second and talk about how I'm laying this out. Because I'll tell you where I think this is going to go. So if you can imagine, comic art cover will often have layered versions of the character, one of them in the background doing something dramatic, and then in the foreground maybe like the human version of the hero and they're relating to people or something. You see that a lot. The general rule of thumb with poster art or cover art is that the largest character that appears on the cover is the main character, and then, tertiary or secondary characters sort of go down in size from there. But I thought that perhaps later in the foreground right here, if we switch back to this, you'll see, but like in the foreground, we could have maybe some of the secondary characters, but I haven't really created those yet. I know that this guy is going to, it looks like the vampire's queuing up to sort of off this guy, this security guard, or he's actually a deputy sheriff, I guess. But he's going to turn out to actually be one of the werewolves that appear in this. So hence when she rushes at him, she's not able to kill him as quickly and easily as she thought. So, but anyway, I was thinking potentially the cover could have this secondary characters, but I just got to go a little bit further before I'm ready to add that. So in this case, we're just going to pop back over to Data Studio and just talk a little bit about how I've laid this out. So looking through the preview camera just so you can see everything. That is my castle, and you see that I have positioned main character way out in space. Gosh, it's just hard to even show you that. Way out in space from the castle. Because I'm doing this, I want to be able to do the cover, completely in Data Studio and just hit render. There's a new version of the cover. I don't have to do all the compositing every time that I add something. Now, this may not be the easiest way, but just for now, it's something I'm trying because I want to have the scene backed up to make that cover if in the future I decide to change it or whatever. I always try to save my scenes according to the page. And so in other words, if this was page 1, it would be scene 1, and then A through whatever, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever, to get the others. But I have my consistent lighting here. And another thing I think I probably want to do is have a scene later on involving her coming down these steps. Now, this brings up an interesting point. This Zion Dark Vampire Castle exterior, a lot of his sets are really, which by the way, I get to work with him some on the side, and very nice guy indeed, but lots of his sets are ginormous. So if you want to get someone down down close, you have to grab a piece of the set and zoom in like that. But let's just say that I didn't have that door to grab onto. Let's just say this were one solid piece and all I could do was select the whole thing. So what I would do to get my positioning is I would go create new primitive, and I would create a large, sphere, and I'm going to go ahead and make that 100, so I know it's going to be a big one. And so there you go. You just grab that sphere, which is going to be 0, 0, 0 on the 3D chart, and you just scale that sucker down till it's about where you want, and that's where it's going to load. That's where all your characters are going to load, but you move it out from there, and that way you don't have to do all this camera dragging business, right? You just don't size it down too much. So I'm going to want her midway on the stairs. I can sort of raise this up and sort of hone it in and get it in the general vicinity. Then I can kind of scale it down as I need to, and then just hit this little icon right here, which lets you zoom in. And now I can get an center line to put her on. Let's save this as, let's just use my convention that I just named. Let's, even though this is not scene 1, let's call it scene 1. Now, by the way, these are actually the day that I created the image just to post on my thread for my 360. So it's okay to give it a separate scene 01. And I'll just go underscore, or let's go dash. It's a little bit easier to make. Dash 8. Scene underscore 1 dash 8. This is no longer the cover scene. You see now it's Amaranthe themed cover, which by the way, that's what I decided to call this little skit since we spoke last. Just looked up, I went to Claude.ai, that's CLAUDE.ai, and asked it to give me name suggestions for a vampire story, a story about a sympathetic vampire who fought werewolves and was sympathetic to humanity. It gave me a bunch of lame things like the Vampire Defender or Vampire Avenger or Moonlight Avenger and all this stuff, because I did mention that it was a comic. I didn't like any of those, but one of the, I asked it to be less obvious and a little bit more cryptic, and then eventually it said the Amaranthine something. I figured Amaranthine was a name of a color that is somewhat red or, dark bluish purple in nature. So I looked that up and thought, hey, there's nothing like this out here. And then I just went, Amaranthe, that's what she'll call herself. So there we go. Scene 1A, I'm going to save it as that. Because instead of, I don't have to have these 3D letters and things that I don't have to have, I'll just dispense with. But I do want to bring her where the sphere is. So if I take the sphere and if you have a little working folder that you're trying to work in, let's see here. I don't remember. I actually haven't really created a folder for this yet, but let's just say that I have. For now, I'll just put it in my top level poses folder. Let's say next time you see this video or whatever, when I come back, I'll have one made up for this project, but so I'll know where my poses are always going to be. But just inside of my top level library folder. And by the way, making these libraries just prevents you from these separate individual libraries instead of just using the DAZ default. It's when you install a new version of DAZ, you can always reinstall your library and everything will already be there. I'm going to call this Go To Poses, this folder I'm making. And then I'll call the sphere and I'll just click here, little plus, save a pose, and we'll call this Go To Steps. All I'm going to do with the sphere is I'm going to unclick everything. And I'm just going to take the transforms, those three right there, and that's going to bring you to that spot with your character. Nothing else is saved. So now I can just turn this off as soon as this shows up. Turn this off, grab my character, and apply this pose, and it should bring her up pretty close because it's a different kind of figure. So there we go. So Bob's your uncle. And now I can get in here and pose her however I want. And it kind of gives you a sense of scale of this castle being this amazingly ginormous place. And lots of times when you get these products, you sort of lose a sense of the scale if you only render them like a, big castle on a hill. But you get in here and you can see a lot more detail that's gone into the model. So let me think here. So I'm going to resave this with her because I know that I wanted to put her on the actual steps. And that's what I've done here. So I'm just going to size her down. Not size her down, but bring her down. So she's standing and she's oriented the way I want her to be oriented. This is a D-Force jacket, but for the time being, I'm going to turn the jacket off. I've got some plans here. They call it PMO long kimono. So anyway, got her right there. This foot needs to kind of go back to default position. Foot and toes and metatarsals. Uh-oh. I didn't mean to do that. What did I do? Trying to render it. Cancel that real quick. By the way, highlighting a body part and pressing Control E should return it to do we have it where we want it? I don't have the sense that we did. Okay, we do. All right, so anyway, got her selected. I'm just going to resave this Go To Pose with her instead of the sphere. And now I don't have to do all that camera drag. Yes. All I'm going to do, once again, actually this time you can, let's do this. Same thing. Boom, boom, boom. And I want her facing the right way. I want the character facing the right way. So that's going to be the Y rotate. And we're going to do the same thing on the hips. And that way we're sure we got it. Y rotate. Okay. Boom. And just because I like to be neat and discreet, I'm going to go ahead and make a thumbnail for this. I have an amazing product called Icon Creator Pro, which I highly recommend. That will just make it so easy to make nice library PNGs so you don't have to look at ugly little unrendered thumbnails. Okay, close. Refresh this. So that's actually what it looks like right there. Not bad. Okay, so the reason I wanted to do all that is because I know I'm going to dig in here to some of my old poses that I've made. And I'm going to get something called, I have a pose package that I made for walking on steps. And back in the day, I wasn't the greatest about my naming conventions, I'll be honest. These were unreleased poses that I've made and just, understand casual. I keep a lot of stuff that I've worked on, some stuff with 6S1 and some others, and some of it doesn't always get released. So it might be just as easy to just kind of create her up. So let's go restore figure pose. Now, because I'm going to restore figure pose, that's going to take her back to the 0 space. And let's see, does it? Yep, it did. Not unexpected. So we're just going to pop back to where we have this, and we went to go to poses, and we're just going to apply that again. Now she'll be back here, turned the right way, but with all of her posing turned off. So she's got these on, and we know we want this to be as if she's walking down the steps. So we'll do this.